Hello, hello. Welcome in. Greetings, greetings. Welcome, welcome, and greetings. Waiting for everyone to get checked in, logged in. Welcome to What's Up in the Watershed. It is 2 o'clock. Thank you for joining us. I'm Caleta Scott. I am one of 3 community engagement coordinators for the Indian River Lagoon National Estuary Program. Thank you all for joining us today. I'm so excited for um, in Inwater Research Group, one of my buddies, friends of the Indian River Lagoon. They do really great work, and I'm excited for them to showcase their long-term assessments of sea turtle populations in Palm Beach County. So before we get started, if everyone will indulge me in a little bit of lagoon yoga, oyster pose. If you can take your hands and clasp them behind your head. This is a nice breathing exercise. I've been doing this in my presentations. Hands clasped behind your head. We're going to take an inhale. You're going to lift your chin, open your heart. And as you exhale, bring your elbows in and round your back. Let's do it again. Inhale, open oyster, chin up. Exhale, closed oyster, rounded back. 3 times a charm. Inhale, look up, open oyster. Exhale, bring your elbows together, round your back, closed oyster. All right, now that our minds are clear, we're ready for a great presentation from Ness Michaels. I'm going to tell you a little bit about Ness. She started her career at Coastal Carolina University, where she received her Bachelor of Science degree in Marine Science in 2017. She then went on to graduate from the University of Miami with a Master of Science in Marine Conservation in 2018, while she was working at the Dry Tortugas National Park. Ness joined Inwater Research in 2020, and she's since been a very integral part of both research and education departments. She contributes to several sea turtle research initiatives across the state of Florida, including nesting beach activities on Hutchinson Island and sea turtle capture efforts in the Florida Keys. She also promotes Inwater Research Group's mission through the management of their social media platforms. They have some really cool socials. If you don't, go ahead and give them a follow. Today, her presentation is going to highlight the research conducted at Lake Worth Lagoon and Jupiter Inlet and diving into the importance of studying these animals and how this information can help us protect their species for generations to come. Thanks for joining us, Ness. Take it away.
Awesome. Thank you for the introduction. As she said, I'm going to be talking today about the long-term assessments of sea turtle populations in Palm Beach County. So, Inwater Research Group, a little bit about us. We're a small nonprofit organization based out of St. Lucie County. We were founded in 2001. Basically, just a small group of biologists who wanted to go out, catch sea turtles, and help kind of preserve their species for generations. Fast forward, this spring is going to be our 25th anniversary. So we've grown quite a bit over the years, and we've put in a lot of work with both our research and our education teams, not only in the state of Florida, but throughout other states in the U.S., and we've even reached internationally as well. So we're really committed to the sea turtle conservation. We're really proud of where we've come in the last 25 years. She said I started with Inwater Research Group in 2020. I started out as a seasonal biologist and kind of never left. I'm starting on year 6 this spring. Super excited about my team. We do some really cool research. I get to help with the daily sea turtle activities. I help with our nesting beach activities during nesting season, March 1st through October 31st. I also work on one of our other research projects in the lower Florida Keys near Big Pine. And again, I run the social media platforms and I also help with the Inwater Research Group website. So I kind of wear a lot of hats in our organization. So, like we said, we study in several different locations throughout the state of Florida. Our main research site is in Hutchinson Island. It's actually at the St. Lucie nuclear power plant. Now, you might not think of a nuclear power plant as a hub for sea turtle conservation, but what happens is the power plant brings in cooling water to cool the reactors, which also entrains wildlife at the same time. Now, these animals actively swim into the pipes that bring in the water, but once they are entrained, they are unable to escape themselves. That includes sea turtles, sharks, rays, Goliath grouper, and all kinds of other marine life. So it's our job 365 days a year to be at this site and safely capture, measure, tag, and remove these animals and release them back to sea. Our other sites throughout the state of Florida, we have 2 in Palm Beach County, which are the ones we're going to talk about today, one in Lake Worth Lagoon and one in Jupiter Inlet. We have 2 sites in the Florida Keys, one, like I was saying, down in Big Pine, Florida, as well as the Marquesas just off of Key West. We also have a study site up near Crystal River in Florida's Big Bend region on the West Coast. And we do some work offshore in the Gulf as well in collaboration with the University of Central Florida. We're actually looking at baby sea turtles and the lost year stage of their life. To dive more into the Palm Beach County programs, this originally started back in 2005. Palm Beach County's Department of Environmental Resources Management reached out to us because they were concerned about the health of these lagoon systems and the health of the wildlife that lives here. So they kind of reached out to us to be like, hey, we want to start studying the sea turtles in this area so that we can learn how to better protect them for future generations. So the top picture here shows our Lake Worth Lagoon study site. This is just near Little Munyon Island. And we started our first survey here in 2005. Project then expanded into Jupiter Inlet, Florida. On the bottom picture there, it's near Du Bois Park, just across from the lighthouse. So we started that project in 2017. Again, both of these projects are in collaboration with Palm Beach County. So for years, we've collected all this data on sea turtle abundance, species composition, health, diet, habitat utilization, and all this information we report back to the county. And this allows the county to focus on conservation management with that information so they can, control dredging projects and coastal development and protect these species amongst all of these processes. So when we go out in the field, we start with visual surveys. There's 2 different types of surveys that we do. The first one is called a hunt transect or a haphazard, unmarked, nonlinear transect. So this is kind of like just zigzagging around in that research area. It's not a set standard. You kind of just run the boat back and forth. You're looking to find a sea turtle. If you spot one, the boat actually follows the turtle until we can safely catch it and put it into the boat. And this kind of gives us an idea of the abundance estimate of the turtles in this area. But we also do standard transects. And these transects don't involve capturing any sea turtles. This is just strictly visual surveys. So we run straight lines back and forth across the research area and just spot turtles. We're looking for species, the size class of the turtles, whether or not they're at or below the surface. And this just kind of allows us to estimate the density of turtles within the area. Again, we report this information to the county so that they're aware of how many turtles are utilizing this habitat. So how do we capture sea turtles? We have a few different methods. The first method is the tangle net method. This method is good when the visibility is really low, which happens in the lagoon waters. Because if you can't see those turtles on visual surveys, it's kind of hard to capture them. So the tangle net is deployed in the water, and we just wait for turtles to passively swim into the net themselves, and then we go untangle them, remove them, and bring them onto the boat. The only downfall of this method is that you do get bycatch from other species, manatees, stingrays, stuff like that, other wildlife that we don't want to try to catch. So we kind of have strayed away from using this method a little bit, and we use our other two methods. The dip netting method is what we use a lot in both Lake Worth Lagoon and Jupiter Inlet. This is a nice, easy method for shallow water areas catching smaller turtles. So you just deploy the net in the water as the boat's following the turtle. The turtle swims into the net, and then you safely bring him on board, as the biologist did here in the video. But any turtles really bigger than his size aren't really good for capturing in the dip net or in deeper water. So we use the rodeo method. So just as it looks, this is super fun for our biologists. It's actually a safe capture method for turtles. You jump off the boat as you're following the turtle, and you grab the turtle and bring it up to the surface, and then the biologists bring it onto the boat. This is a small juvenile here, just for example of the kind of turtles that we handle via rodeo in Lake Worth Lagoon and in Jupiter. But in some of our other research sites, like the Key West sites, we're actually capturing loggerheads and green turtles that are 200 to 300 pounds using the rodeo method. So it's much more successful than the dip net method when it comes to bigger turtles. So what happens after we capture a turtle and bring it onto the boat? So we do all kinds of data collection. This is the most important part. First, we collect morphometric data. So we're getting the straight and curved measurements on both the top and bottom side of the turtle shell. We're also recording weight on each individual turtle. The most important part is probably the tagging. Each sea turtle gets 2 flipper tags and 1 pit tag. So the flipper tags are they're 2 small metal tags that go in each front flipper of the turtle. It's kind of like getting an ear piercing. Quick, goes in the flipper. It's an external tag. We use these because they're a cheaper method that are also easier for other researchers to identify. You can see them from the boat, you can see them in the water, and you don't have to have any special equipment to be able to visibly see these tags. Now, a pit tag is like a microchip, like you would put in your cat or dog. We use them on sea turtles too. So they're inserted under the skin in the right front flipper. And we use, if you can see on the bottom, there's kind of that green handheld device there. That's called the pit tag scanner. We use that to look for microchips. This tag should last about the lifespan of the turtle. So if the flipper tags were to fall out over time, we still have a way to identify each individual. The only problem is that the scanners can be expensive. Not other researchers, they don't always carry that kind of equipment. So they might not be able to scan a turtle that only has a pit tag. So that's kind of why we use both the flipper and the pit tags. They both have kind of benefits and downfalls for identifying turtles. So after we tag the turtle, we also take a look at the health of the animal in general. We're looking for anything anthropogenic, as in fishing line or plastic ingestion, or anything kind of affecting the turtle's well-being. We also look for injuries from boat strikes, shark bites. We look for disease prevalence as well. We look for a certain disease called fibropapillomatosis. So fibropapillomatosis is, or FP for short, is a tumor-causing disease that affects all 7 species of sea turtles. It's actually most common in our juvenile green sea turtles, and that's based on where they like to hang out. So we're not exactly sure the root cause of FP. We do know that it's a herpes virus, but the turtle version called colonid FP associated herpes virus. But we do know that it is linked to pollution and other environmental factors like heat stress and stuff like that, that actually exacerbates the disease once they have. We just don't know what causes them to get the disease in the first place. But it is something that is highly studied across the globe in sea turtle species. So the juvenile green sea turtles again are the most effective because they like to hang out in these areas like Lake Worth Lagoon or the Indian River Lagoon, for example, which are very like highly polluted water systems, right? So a lot of the turtles that we see in these areas do have the FP tumors. It's not the worst thing in the world. We do see turtles that are able to actually heal themselves in the wild from this. We've measured turtles over time who we've actually seen their tumor growth reduce or even be completely gone. Now, there are several rehab facilities across the state of Florida that if the conditions are too severe, the turtle will go to rehab and get surgery to remove the tumors and get treatment as well so that it could be safely released back into the wild. So that's just a quick idea to show you what a day in the field looks like. From start to finish, we go out on the boat, we do the surveys, capture the turtle, bring it on board for the workup, and then it is safely released. That video was actually recorded at our Jupiter Inlet site near Du Bois Park. So let's take a closer look at the data that we've collected so far. At Lake Worth Lagoon, our study site, we started there in 2005. Since then, we have a total of 286 captures. It kind of has varied in the last several years. Now, our contract with the county goes about 18 months. So some years it looks like there's a lower amount of turtles, but that just might mean that we surveyed less in those years versus the previous year. We didn't necessarily see a change in abundance. But in 2022, we saw 22 juvenile to subadult green turtles, 9 in 2023, 21 in 2024, and 9 in 2025. We've also seen a few loggerheads at this site. It's not as common as the green turtles that we see here, but it does happen from time to time. The little guy on the bottom here, he's actually a juvenile loggerhead. We typically see them at the subadult size, which is about 60 centimeters. So it's kind of cool to catch this guy on the smaller end of things. And even it's more important to collect the data on the few that we do see here to understand why they're utilizing this habitat and how they're interacting with the green turtle population. So of those 286 captures, most of them are what we call new recruits. A new recruit is a turtle that doesn't have any tags. It hasn't been seen by any other researchers before. And that's kind of our cue to go ahead and put tags in and create this individual as its own for the future. When we see an individual sea turtle again, we call that a recapture. So that means our group originally tagged a turtle and we saw it again after that first encounter. So we've had 28 recaptures over the entire project, again, starting in 2005. That's not a whole lot for this area. And even more so, there are only 24 individuals. So this means that we've roughly seen each individual one extra time. We don't typically tend to see an individual more than 2 or 3 times in Lake Worth. We have 5 strange tags at this area. A strange tag is when we find a turtle that has tags, but they weren't inserted by our group. This is a turtle that has been tagged by another organization anywhere in the US or anywhere in the world. One of my most notable strange tags from Lake Worth Lagoon is this guy here. His name is Donatello. So he actually stranded in Palm Beach County in February of 2024, found by another group. He had fishing line wrapped around his left front flipper. So they took him to Loggerhead Marine Life Center. And they unfortunately had to amputate the front flipper due to it just cutting off the circulation and the blood flow to that area. But he was fully healed and fully treated and released in June of 2024. So we actually caught this turtle at our Lake Worth Lagoon site following that in July of 2024. So when we saw that the tags had been from another group, we contacted the Archie Carr Refuge of they have a sea turtle tag database, and we report to them when we find a tag that doesn't belong to us, and they kind of give us the full story of where the turtle originated and kind of where it's been since then. So that's how we knew that Donatello had a story, and he's out there. He was super healthy when we found him. He's living a great life now, even with three flippers. He's able to fully function out in the wild, and it was really cool to see that his story had been a success. We also have some tag returns. A tag return is when somebody reports our tags back to that sea turtle database through Archie Carr. So that means somebody else found our turtle and reported that they had our tag numbers, and then they kind of reach out to us and say, "Hey, we saw your turtle here. It's doing well," or here it had to come to rehab, or whatever the case was. We only had 7 tag returns in the history of the project in Lake Worth Lagoon. Here's some more photos from Lake Worth, our site down there. You can see on the bottom, there's one of the tangle net methods that they use where they caught a loggerhead sea turtle. We have the boat out near Little Munyon, visual surveys in Lake Worth Lagoon, and you can see we're mostly focused on the juvenile green turtles that inhabit this area. Now looking at the captures at Jupiter Inlet, we actually have 237 captures at this site. Now that's slightly less than Lake Worth Lagoon, but if you notice, we didn't start this project until 2017. So we actually caught more in a shorter span at this project site. Now we haven't caught any other species at Jupiter Inlet. It is strictly juvenile and sometimes subadult green turtles, mostly just the juveniles. We had 29 greens in 2022. 37 in 2023, 36 in 2024, and 24 in 2025. Now, with Jupiter Inlet, we tend to see that the site fidelity is a lot stronger at this site. So we actually recapture many individuals and for more times than just seeing them once or twice after their original capture. So we had a total of 150 captures. That's over 50% of the total that we've had here at this site. And we had, if you break that down, that's 53 individuals. So that's actually less individuals compared to the overall recaptures, meaning we're seeing these turtles more in this area. So we have seen, I think 7 was our highest recapture rate for one individual sea turtle. We do have a few strange tags that have come out of Jupiter Inlet. The most notable from this site is this tag called M8149. We noticed right away that this wasn't one of our tags because our flipper tags have 3 letters and 3 numbers. So the sequence was a little different here. So when we reached out, we figured out that this turtle was originally tagged in Bermuda, which was pretty cool, back in 2016. And then we actually captured it in June of 2021 at our Jupiter Inlet study site. So we also reported that information back to the group in Bermuda so that they know where their turtle has made it and that he's healthy and living in the inlet. We've had 32 tag returns, so a little bit more than Lake Worth Lagoon at our Jupiter site. Typically what happens with the turtles here, we see a lot of them end up being strandings for the FP tumors or fishing line or boat strikes. And we actually get this tag information from the Loggerhead Marine Life Center because they're the closest nearby. They're just down the street from this site. So they do send us that information back every time they get one of our turtles. And here are some extra photos from our Jupiter Inlet site. You can see all focused on the juvenile green sea turtles. We do capture a little bit more at this site. The visibility tends to be a little bit better than our Lake Worth Lagoon site, which is also makes it easier for capturing more turtles per research trip. And again, high site fidelity. We're seeing a lot of these juveniles that are hanging out in this area for a long period of time. So that's the release part. So after we do the capture, the measurements, the tags, and everything else, these turtles are safely released back to sea, straight where we caught them at the research site. They and then they swim around, and we hope to see them next time. Looking further at some of the data and the results from these research sites, FP rates that we've seen over the last few years have kind of varied. You can see that the Lake Worth Lagoon sites were actually lower at about 41%. And our Jupiter sites had a higher PAP rate at 52% out of the turtles we captured over the last 4 years. But if you take a look back at the entirety of the project, our Lake Worth Lagoon numbers are closer to 48, 49% since 2005, and our Jupiter Inlet captures are closer to 44% since 2017. So it does vary throughout the years. Conditions, environmental conditions change, which affect that. The turtle populations kind of change, which also affects that. If you look at the map here, it shows the kind of the east coast of Florida and how the FP rates vary between project sites. So you can see that again, Lake Worth Lagoon is around 48, 49%. And even more so in Jennings Cove, which is our Indian River Lagoon site. We don't capture as many turtles here in today's time, but we did focus on this research site way back when the company started. So we do know that the turtles here are very turtles in Lake Worth, and they're both inhabiting these polluted waters, and we're seeing these higher FP rates that are affecting our juvenile green turtles. Whereas if you compare to other sites like the St. Lucie site, where it's about 6%, and the Key West site, where it's about 13%, some of these waters or these open ocean waters don't have as high of a pollution rate. Or sorry, as high of an FP rate, their pollutions are a little bit lower. And then you can see at our Boca Raton site, we actually have 0%. Now we don't study as much here on the Boca Raton site. We have about 60 turtle captures here, so that can also affect it with the sample size being low. But we typically don't see any FP on the turtles that we do capture here. We look at diet as well. Green turtles are almost entirely herbivorous, so they like to feed on seagrass and algae, the occasional jellyfish or crab or other organisms, but they mostly focus on the seagrass. So studying the seagrass and what the turtles are eating lets us know how healthy the lagoon system is and whether or not there are shifts in that behavior or in the development of the seagrass itself. So in Lake Worth Lagoon, we noticed our turtles were originally munching on the turtle grass. We kind of had an algal shift in 2014 to 2018. And more recently, we've noticed that our animals are feeding on the shoal grass. In our Jupiter Inlet site, they feed on the shoal grass and a different species known as the Johnson seagrass. But we're seeing that all these turtles are healthy and they're eating, and we actually send these diet samples off to a lab so that they can further investigate these samples. Another way that we tag sea turtles in our areas here in Palm Beach County is using acoustic tagging. So these are small transmitters that are actually adhered to the outside of the turtle shell, right on the edge there. We use an epoxy method to kind of attach it. And the acoustic tag sends these sound pulses, or what we call pings, to receivers, which I will tell you about on the next slide. And this is a way to monitor the movement and behavior of the sea turtles in these areas. The only problem with our acoustic tags is that they only last about a few weeks at most. Green turtles are very particular species on the things on their shells. Um, they don't even like the barnacles and other living organisms that hang out there. They tend to rub up on rocks or piers to kind of clean their shells off. So they tend to rub these tags off quicker than we can get them to last. So the acoustic receiver is this device here. This is the device that listens to the sound that is pinging from that small transmitter attached to the turtle. So what we do is we attach these receivers to these concrete stands that you can see here. And we actually deploy them at the bottom of the ocean. We set them up in what we call an array, and we kind of spread them out and make these like gates so that the turtles, when they swim in and out of these acoustic arrays or in and out of these gates, their tags will ping and send the information to the receiver. So the receiver records stuff like time, date, temperature, other data that we can kind of get an idea on what these turtles are doing. It gives us an idea of when they're moving, why they might be moving, what time of day, how that kind of affects them, and it gives us a bigger picture of how they're utilizing these lagoon systems for their habitat. So to continue work in Lagoon and Jupiter, we're going to continue doing our surveys and continue collaborating with Palm Beach County. Um, Again, these are some long-term studies that we've been doing for years, but the longer that we do these studies, the longer we can kind of look at the overall health and projection of these species and get an idea on where they're going, the health of them, and kind of how we can continue to shift with protecting them moving forward. The biggest things looking at the diet and the health, the FP rates especially. We've seen that kind of change and increase over the years, so we want to keep an eye on that and make sure that environmental conditions or pollution is not increasing the PAP rate. And if it is, how we can put measures in place to reduce that. We do want to deploy more acoustic tags and receivers. We actually are going out next month to deploy more receivers in our Jupiter Inlet area. Um, and again, we're looking at the movement of these guys in comparison with the size class as well. So we're looking at we typically see the turtles come into these areas at about 30 centimeters at the juvenile stage. They recruit to these coastal waters, and then they typically leave at their teenage stage, which is roughly 50 to 60 centimeters in size. So we're trying to compare how that sample size of the population is using this area, what stage that they're moving on from this area and going into deeper waters, and how that affects the Lake Worth Lagoon and Jupiter Inlet projects. So again, we report this information to the county so that they can use this to make conservation measures and use it in management practices to protect these waters, these habitats, and these animals. So who wants to save sea turtles? Yeah, we've talked a lot about how we ourselves go out there and do the work to conduct sea turtle studies and protect these species. But I wanted to share some tips with you guys on how you can help us protect the sea turtles as well, because it's not just on us. It's a global effort, and it requires everybody's help to kind of protect these species for future generations. So the biggest thing, like we've talked about today, is pollution. Plastic pollution, water runoff, fertilizers, all that kind of stuff that is affecting our waterways affects our sea turtles as well. They are ingesting, all these pollutions, the pollutants that are in the water. We find them ingesting the plastics in the water. They also become entangled in trash and other debris. And sometimes they are able to be rehabilitated, and unfortunately, sometimes they don't make it. So it's our job to do the best we can to minimize these effects on our turtles so that they can live a healthier life in our lagoon systems. So some of the ways you can help is minimize your fertilizer and pesticide use at home. Rainwater and other water runoff does run these through the sewer systems, which are expelled into our lagoon systems, polluting the water. You can use reusable items and use less plastic. So reusable bags, water bottles, Tupperware, all that kind of stuff reduces our impact and helps the turtles and the other marine wildlife that lives in these systems. Um, Also, just minimizing and properly disposing of your household waste in general. Minimizing our waste assures that less of it actually makes it into our environment. Picking up litter and trash that you see outside in the water on the beaches. Even if it's not your trash, it does help our animals if we all do that together. And just leaving our lagoons and beaches better than you found them. Leave them clean, flat, pick up debris. That's going to help our animals so that they have less chance of ingesting or becoming entangled in these items. Another big one that we see in these areas is fishing line and hooks. Um, Fishing line, you can see here on this bottom picture, this little juvenile green unfortunately was tangled up in derelict line that was left in the water. He did have a good outcome. It wasn't wrapped super tight, so we were able to take him to rehab where they could remove it and treat this guy until he was able to be released. If you look in the x-ray there on the top of the screen, this guy actually ingested two hooks. You can see there's one in the throat and one further down in the abdomen. Sea turtles find fishing piers and docks exciting sources of food where they can and get free sources of shrimp and bait and squid and all that kinds of stuff. So they frequent these areas, and unfortunately, the fishing line and fishing hooks become detrimental to their well-being. So how we can help with that is we can recycle our monofilament fishing line. You can see here in this picture, a lot of docks and piers are putting these PVC recycling stations out. And they'll actually take care of that monofilament line for you and recycle it so that it's not being wasted or put into our water systems. You can also pick up any other derelict line or fishing hooks that you might see or properly dispose of if you're using them for fishing. That does help make sure that they don't make their way into the water and into the turtles, abdomens and systems. If you are a fisherman and you like to go out there and frequent these piers where our turtles hang out, we recommend using barbless circle hooks. Barbed hooks and J hooks actually cause more damage if they hook a sea turtle. Based on their shape and especially the barb, they can get deeper into a turtle's throat and actually kind of hook on more to the tissue and cause more damage. Whereas the barbless circle hooks are easier to remove and are a little bit safer for the turtles versus the other versions. And another thing we can do is just avoid dumping the fish and bait scraps into the water. Might seem like the easy thing to do, feeding the fish, but it also attracts the turtles and draws them to these pier areas and lets them know that this is a food source. Not only have we seen turtles at piers frequently, but a lot of the rehab centers get repeat offenders. They'll rehab a turtle that has a hook or fishing line and they'll release it. It'll end up at the same pier with the same problem. They've seen it happen 2 or 3 times over with the same individual turtle. So we just need to figure out a way to condition them not to focus on the piers as a food source. Another big thing that we see with our turtles in these areas is boat collisions. Unfortunately, I'd say that these are probably more on the lethal side of our sea turtle strandings that we see. A lot of turtles do not survive this, especially the small ones. So it's very important that we follow slow speed zones. They're there for a reason. No wake zones in those shallow water areas. Um, they're there to protect not only our sea turtles, but our marine mammals and our other wildlife that are out there. If you are out on the boat, it's best to have somebody be a lookout. So you could put somebody on the bow of the boat or anywhere they can see the water and kind of help the driver point out marine life that may be at or below the surface that the driver cannot see when he's using the boat. We also recommend polarized sunglasses. This is a better way to see through the water. You can actually cut the glare and see turtles that might not necessarily be at the surface of the water. Kind of just gives you a better look so you can keep an eye out for these animals. Avoid the shallow seagrass beds. This is their home. So we want to make sure that we stay out more in deeper waters. They have a less chance of getting hit by boats in those areas. And then just keep a safe distance. Again, this is their space. We want to make sure if we do see wildlife that we're not approaching them or harassing them. We just want to observe from afar and let them live their life naturally. And if you guys are ever out in the fields and you see a injured turtle, dead turtle, harassed turtle, or a sea turtle nest, for example, that you're concerned about, please contact FWC. You can reach their wildlife hotline here with this number. We do take stranding calls, but we can't take them directly typically. We have to go through the state. So if you do call FWC, they'll respond, they'll call and respond to the closest organization, which might be us or another turtle organization who is able to respond quickly and help these animals. It's best not to touch them or move them, just leave them where they're at. If FWC needs your help or assistance with any of these animals, they will ask you to do that, but we don't like to typically do anything before the state gives you the okay. One more thing I wanted to throw in there today is our youth driven cinema festival. We're actually doing this in collaboration with One Lagoon, as well as the Environmental Studies Center in Jensen Beach and the Earth Saver Squad. This is a really cool opportunity to get your kids involved in conservation and wildlife films. Um, it's a short wildlife inspired film, 3 minutes roughly. We're asking that they just focus on a conservation topic and how they can protect the planet to get them to kind of be inspired by our animals and our wildlife and to get them to become advocates for our planet and for our future. This film festival is open for St. Lucie and Martin counties for students K through 12. We are doing the film festival at the Lyric Theater in Stewart. So after the submissions are reviewed, we will go to the Lyric. Friends and family are all welcome to join to watch the students film on the big screen. The event is completely free. So we do encourage you to come and support the kids. And then there's cash prizes as well, which is always a fun time. But it's really just exciting and inspiring to see these students present their films and care about the planet. This year's theme is leaving legacies. So again, just advocating for the planet and advocating for these animals, and how we can protect them for future generations. That's all I have for you today. Our website is here with the QR code if you'd like to learn more about what we do or in our other projects. Our social media links are here as well. We do post weekly with updates on our research and education team, so I encourage you to follow along. And my contact info is here as well in case there's any other questions after today that you might think of or want to reach out and ask. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ness. That was great. That's great. We have a number of questions. So, first, I want to just talk about the fact that I love when everyone is speaking the same language. I heard tenants from Trash Free Waters, Leave No Trace, Living Lagoon Friendly. So, I think that's really encouraging because we are speaking the same language. That's how we indeed have one voice. So, let's start with the first question. It's going back to Donatello at Archie Carr. And it said, of the five strange tags in Lake Worth Lagoon, from where were the others tagged?
Some of them, there were a couple that were Palm Beach County. I know this one in particular was Loggerhead Marine Life Center. I think we did find one that was from our St. Lucie site, actually, up on Hutchinson Island. And I don't remember where the other few were.
Okay. All right. The next question was overall, and this is probably something a lot of us have the question of, how's the seagrass health in the Lake Worth Lagoon and Jupiter Inlet?
The seagrass health is looking good. We are seeing that the turtles are still munching on this, and we haven't seen a shift in diet, proving that there isn't enough seagrass for the animals in this habitat. I know the county also does seagrass surveys themselves, so they have information on that as well. But as far as we're concerned, the turtles are eating and they're still inhabiting these areas, and it's looking pretty good.
Great, great. Another question is, are there any physiological or behavioral stress indicators associated with the capture and workup of the sea turtles?
That is a great question. We actually did study this at one of our research sites with another biologist who took blood samples at the time of capture and then at the time of release to look at the stress hormones to see if the captures were affecting these turtles. And they actually found that there's a very minimal impact. They do not have a high stress response from this encounter.
That's really good to hear. That question was asked by another person as well. Next question is, why do you think juvenile green sea turtles keep returning to the Lake Worth Lagoon, even though it's also a hot spot for FP?
Um, It's so the turtles don't really, know or understand I think the quality of the water. They do inhabit these areas for the biggest thing is protection. So they really like these shallow waters at this stage in their life so that they can avoid predators like bull sharks and stuff who cannot access these shallow water areas. So that's the biggest reason that they stay in these zones. Um, Preference on where they pick their site, whether it's Lake Worth Lagoon or Jupiter Inlet or even other parts throughout the state. I mean, we have a good juvenile green population at Walton Rocks here on the island. I can't really tell you why each population picks its own specific spot. They kind of have their own little like instincts for that, if that makes sense.
That does make sense. I'm going to keep going. Oh no. Next question. Do you think that the FP hotspots should be prioritized for turtle research efforts, or should the resources focus on preventing the environmental conditions that trigger disease? Or probably both.
Both, honestly. Yeah. Yeah, so that's kind of our part. We focus more on the actual sea turtle capture effort in these areas so that we can physically monitor the disease on the animals. But it's a huge collaboration. We can't do it all ourselves. We work with a lot of other organizations, the county themselves for the management. We work with labs like the Sea Turtle Hospital at UF Whitney Lab. They work closely with actually examining the blood and tumors of these animals, like further doing the back end research, even to like the microscopic level of figuring out where the PAPs came from and how the PAPs started. So yeah, I would say that and even the groups that do focus on the water quality, like it's a group effort, and I think every person in every group needs to do their part for us to hopefully make an impact moving forward.
Yes. We love collaboration around here as well. And speaking on that, I'm going to jump to this question about some of the funding. Other than your contracts with the counties, do you have other sources of funding? Were those organizations you were just talking about, do they help with funding so that you can come in and do the work?
Sometimes collaborations, especially with other sea turtle organizations, are strictly collaborations. We will just kind of help each other out, and it kind of breaks even. But sometimes we do share grant funding. We apply for a lot of grants for our own organization. That's kind of how we get our funding. We go off a donation based as well, being a nonprofit. So yeah, if there's projects and other research that we want to do, we have to kind of go out and search for the funding ourselves. But internally throughout the sea turtle community, we kind of have a good standing with a lot of people where if we help you, they help you back.
Great, great. Speaking of that kind of work to get working together, I've got a question from Nick at FOS. He says, great job. And he said, it's great that Palm Beach County is having you guys do this work, but have Martin or St. Lucie counties reached out to you to do similar work? Because he's a part of the research department, and on multiple occasions have seen juvenile greens when doing field work. So he was just curious.
We don't have any in-water projects that are with Martin and St. Lucie counties in the same contract agreement like we do with Palm Beach. Like I said, Jennings Cove was a big area that we studied when our company first came together in the late 90s, early 2000s. And they did do some surveys there, I believe, with St. Lucie County, but we don't have anything like that today. Now, being at the power plant, we do get a good sample size of the turtles there within St. Lucie County, and we report back that information. But that is interesting. Yeah, I'm sure there are more things that we could do working with the counties up here to be able to advance that research.
Thanks. And there's a follow-up question to that. Why do you think you're seeing the shift in seagrass species? Could it be due to the availability of the grass, as turtle grass tends to be a little more picky in where it grows?
Yeah, we do think that it has kind of shifted there, just with the environmental conditions as well as all kinds of factors that are there within these lagoon systems. The algae, maybe, we've seen more algae and other blooms of things, which also is affected by the pollutants and stuff like that. So we've seen that the turtles are kind of shifting to this other grass, and it's kind of seems to be more abundant in this area, in these areas.
Awesome. And another question, what's the most challenging part of studying sea turtles?
That's a good question. Um, it's I'd say the most challenging, besides accessing turtles, which our group has really gotten good at, because we don't start knowing where these species are. It's a big exploration. All these sites that we study around the state, we have to find those hotspots first. So there's a lot of trial and error just going out in the boat. You might have long days out in the sun of seeing no turtles. But yeah, just maybe that, and just seeing all the things that these turtles are affected by is hard. We're doing our absolute best to minimize these impacts and learn as much as we can to protect these species moving forward. But it is hard sometimes and challenging to see all the things that they go through that aren't necessarily things that we can control.
Okay, thank you for that. I think that was all the questions. Are there any more questions we want to put in the chat while we're here? If not, we want to thank Ness and Inwater Research Group for joining us on What's Up in the Watershed. Guys, got a few more minutes left in this hour. Oh, look, we got another question. It was a thank you. So that's great. We appreciate everyone attending today. And soon it'll be up available on our website and on YouTube. And join us next month. I don't have the date in front of me. I'm sorry, but if you're here, you're going to get an email and we'll let you know. Thank you so much. Have a great afternoon.